Cool shades, though.
Yeah,
Right.
my eyes are starting to hurt. So I just put it on.
We are live. Are we visual, Malia? Can they see us yet?
Yes, they can.
Can they hear us yet? Hey, do you guys hear us? Hello, hello, hello. Walter Bosley channel. Things are different around here. And we have a guest tonight. You guys hear me in there, right? Yeah, I'm assuming you can. Yes, okay. We have a guest tonight. It's my first time I've done it this way. I usually in the past I've either been at Flying Brian's house or you know, out and about on the Empire of the Wheel tour. But tonight, as you can see, we have Todd Wood, my co-author on these two books right here. So I'm telling you, Todd, it's I was just telling him it's great to see him literally, because we've worked together for a couple of years now and you know, on a couple of books and counting, and this is the first time we've ever spoken face to face. It's all been on the phone, you guys. So Todd, how's things going on your end? How's the weather over there in Tennessee?
Well, it was a rainy day to work in, let me tell you. But it didn't slow down the donations. It never does. Rain or shine, we got hit pretty hard, and it was a pretty physical day.
Okay.
Did something like 15,000 steps, you know.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess on a rainy day, do people go out shopping, or do
yeah, especially right now, because
Yeah.
they're all getting ready for Halloween, and see, because of the economy, everybody is either moving out or moving in. Like, we have a lot of people moving in from like Orange County. We have a lot of California people moving to Franklin, and then we have the old Franklin people moving out to more affordable places.
Okay. Yeah, I'll bet you do have people moving from some places and there. That seems to be going on. And just want to let everyone know that the Gorn is here, and there's a straw in here somewhere. There it is. It wouldn't be the show without me drinking something from the Gorn, and that's a bit tart. It's one of those ice sugar-free drinks with the safe sweetener for me, with a little safe energy kick. So I will have a graphic to share with you guys later. Todd and I are going to be here talking for about an hour, and you'll get your chance to ask him some questions, not just my fat head. And but after that, I will stay on a little bit longer to take general questions. But before Todd gets out of here, we're going to share something with you. We have a fun new project that I was hoping to get out and released and available by Halloween, but other things that are good things slowed me down and prevented that. But anyway, the two books that Todd and I have worked on together so far are in what many of you know as the Lost Future series. And we called it a series from the get-go because we agreed that there was so much material that it was going to take a series of books, and we agreed that doing these short books, giving you this mystery in the short bites, would be the best way to learn about it, to take it. Oh, by the way, that eerie music that you heard coming in, that was composed and performed by Todd, by the way, for use here at the Walter Bosley channel. And Todd was digging into a bunch of this stuff, and we were talking about it. And you know, and in fact, I think think actually you called in one time, didn't you, Todd?
Called in?
Yeah. Didn't you call in one time? I seem to recall us talking about how we decided to write the book together.
Yeah, that first time we talked to each other, I don't remember if I called into a show or not.
Well, maybe you were in the live chat or something.
Live chat.
But yeah, he'd been doing this research, and I said, man, you ought to write this into a book. And then he said, well, you remember what you told me?
Yeah, I'm blind as a bat. I have a degenerative eye disease.
So, but let me tell you guys something that does not hold this guy back, because he does all the primary research in the stuff we've written. I mean, it's just incredible the amount of data that you collect, Todd. So we decided, it's like, hey, let's make these books happen together. And many of you have heard us talk about the Ingersoll Lockwood book. This is the most recent one we came out with just a little less than a year ago. And believe me, folks, this one is, if you like this one, you got to read this, because Margaretta Todd and Ingersoll Lockwood had kind of a weird relationship there, and it's all part of the bigger picture. And we are working on the third one. But Todd, tell me, or tell them, you and I have talked about it, what first got you interested in Ingersoll Lockwood? How did he appear on your radar, so to speak?
Well, first I heard about him from just a random YouTube channel. Apparently somebody in, I think it was either the Netherlands or Austria, had found a copy of the Baron Trump book, and someone made a video about their friend finding the book. Like, I think it's Styx Hexenhammer. And his friend found the Baron Trump book, and then I started looking into it, and the whole thing I kept getting more and more intrigued by this whole idea of predicting the future through art and media, and I just kept going further and further down the rabbit hole, and here we are.
Yeah, it's I had first heard the name Ingersoll Lockwood, of course, when the implied political implications surfaced for everyone, right? But you really introduced me to the truly weird details with Ingersoll Lockwood.
Yeah.
And the fact that when you really dig in and look at the books, the predictive connections to the Trump family really come through in the Baron Trump books. Those are the adventures about the boy Baron Trump. It's a title for him. Of course, it's the same as Donald Trump's son, youngest son, being his proper name, his first name.
Right.
But that's really just where it starts. But then a lot of people went down a particular road or track with implying that the Ingersoll Lockwood book, a short book titled The Last President, surely must have something to do with, Trump while he was president. And what happens is, as Todd informed me, and then I read it myself, when you read the story, it's the Last President is really not about Trump at all. It's more disturbingly about things that have happened since he left office. But what we really focused on for half the book was this whole mystery, this whole question about how Lockwood could have written such, I guess prescient is the word, material, right? And how he could have, for lack of a better way to put it, literally glimpsed, right? Would you say it's more of a glimpse because it's not exactly the future, but
right. Yeah. The whole idea of precognition has really always intrigued me.
Mhm.
Like I considered perhaps, maybe he saw it in a dream, and that and if so, he saw it in a dream, then things would appear upside down and backwards and out of order, right?
Right. Sure.
So that would explain the inconsistencies, because he'd have to interpret anything that he saw. So Ingersoll Lockwood would be faced with a riddle, and he'd have to be able to recognize that it was a riddle. So
Mhm.
there's always the chance that he was just using this dream, if he even had a dream, as some sort of inspiration for like the Barron Trump book or 1900 The Last President. But I also would like what we also considered that Charles Howard Johnson,
Charles Howard Johnson. Yeah.
yeah, gave him the information too, which is very intriguing, as equally intriguing.
That's the wilder limb of speculation to crawl out on for certain. It's I have to say, through research I've done and personal experience, your dream possibility is, as speculations go, I think that's a reasonable one, because how many of us have had precognitive dreams,
Right.
right? So certainly, to the extent that many people have experienced that, your suggestion that he could indeed have had some type of dream across time and space, or something else, which I'll bring up, and came away with, as you say, these bits and pieces, that some of it was in order, some of it was not quite clear to him. So that's how he ended up with, he knew he was dealing with a boy. He knew that the name Barron Trump was in there, right? Of course, he, the way he's going to see it isn't going to be exactly the Barron Trump that we know, 100 and some years later. And then, of course, there's Charles Howard Johnson doing that one illustration that just looked exactly like young Barron Trump,
Right.
pretty much in 2016. But another possibility that Lockwood may have experienced, excuse me, had a cough there, dry throat, might not have been a dream of a reality through time and space, literally, but, and this is not in the book. It didn't pop into my head until long after, Todd, you'll find this happens. You'll do your best. You'll put a book out there, think you got it all covered, and then like a couple of years later, you'll go, oh, there's this other possibility, and this possibility is such that the synchronicity, what we call the synchronicities, I think more accurately what Sechery refers to as the karmic frequencies. I personally, in my experience, have come to be convinced that, or to think, I don't like to use the word believe, to think that what the karmic frequencies are the threads in the fabric of reality. Or let me rephrase this. They are threads in the fabric of reality. And they can be predictive.
Yeah.
Dangerously so, as some believe, Sechery among them. And there's something about the nature of our psyche, our human psyche, and what it can tap into, that it seems to me that it's one of those things where once you see the karmic frequencies, once you realize they're there, you cannot unsee them. And that includes your subconscious. So it could be, like you say, he dreamed this, but what he was tapping into wasn't so much across time and space, a period that in linear thinking we can say didn't happen yet. That's a whole other conversation as to whether we can say that. But
Right.
let's, if we're thinking in a linear fashion, he very well could have dreamed while tapped into, while his brain, his subconscious was plugged into these karmic frequencies. And what that suggests is, well, it brings up the question, in order for your subconscious to tap into such frequencies, was there any connection in his waking life to any of this, to any of these people, right?
Right.
And that's the kind of question that we're pulling threads on, exploring in this entire Lost Future,
Right.
series that we're doing, really.
Right. I mean, Ingersoll Lockwood epitomizes the idea of the lost future, in my opinion, just because the period in which he was alive, the whole idea of 1900, the last president, right? The dystopian novel in which William Jennings Bryan, he becomes president, right? And William Jennings Bryan, we trace him into the Woodrow Wilson administration, all the way into World War I, right? And I mean, just the weird synchronicities with that guy alone, I mean, Ingersoll Lockwood was definitely on to something.
Yeah.
Not to mention the whole, he ran against McKinley in the 1900 election, and McKinley was assassinated.
And I was just looking at the McKinley assassination on request from somebody I'm working on an important media project with. So that's interesting that that comes up. And hey, I'll throw a synchronicity at you. When Cardinal Sin and Malia, our stream master here, when they were out here, I drove them past a park in Redlands a couple of times, which back in the day, President McKinley visited, and there stands to this day a bust of McKinley in the park, where there is also the Lincoln Shrine. So we have two assassinated presidents enshrined or celebrated in this park, which...
And Ingersoll Lockwood was appointed to be consul to the Kingdom of Hanover by Abraham Lincoln in 1862.
So there you go, people. That's that karmic frequency thread.
Yeah.
Running through the fabric of reality. And I would like to, this is why you hear me increasingly use the karmic frequency phrase, because as next week's guest, Laura London, is going to explain further, when we use the word synchronicity really gets misused, kind of like ley line and telluric current. Now, physically, the natural phenomenon that energizes the ley lines is technically telluric current. And when we're talking about ley lines in that popular sense, we're talking about something more than just the current. And the same thing with synchronicity is people have come to bandy that about, and it drives a true Jungian scholar nuts. So that's why I like karmic frequency, because Todd, I think, as you see, particularly as we dove deeper into karmic frequency type stuff, I think, with the Margaretta Todd mystery.
Right. Don't forget Margaretta Todd, Margaretta von Hoffman. If she was indeed a von Hoffman, then that would have made her related to Theodore Roosevelt, who took McKinley's place.
Yes, he did indeed. And which brings to mind something I never thought of, and I wonder if David Paulides has thought about this. Theodore Roosevelt was the president who preserved our national parks.
Yeah.
Just for fun, one could ask the question, what did Teddy know?
Yeah.
Teddy was an outdoorsman, an avid outdoorsman. He spent a lot of time in the America's wilderness. I've never looked into this, but I wonder what kind of strange tales have ever been associated with Teddy Roosevelt and his peregrinations. Is that a word I can use? So with the Margaretta Todd issue, what we have is a woman who, very interesting character, who had for a while a very close relationship with Ingersoll Lockwood, and they have a bit of a falling out, as Indiana Jones said in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And she ends up, well, tell us, Todd. Remind the audience how she ends up
murdered.
Yep.
In 1905, I think it was October 27th, 1905.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah. I forgot about that
she was to not be so gruesome about it, she was drugged and then thrown onto a steep rock-filled ravine into the train tracks, and her legs were severed by the train. And it was a messy scene.
Yeah,
it was very messy, but it was definitely foul play. You'll have to read the book.
Yes, folks, it's this one here, the Margaretta Todd book, and you'll notice there's somebody else on the cover with her. That guy is Napoleon III. Oh boy, yes, indeed. Yes, there's a Napoleonic connection. Hey, that's another thing. When Todd is telling me about the research he did on Margaretta, and he's first telling me about the connection to Napoleon III, you know, my head starts spinning, because as I said to Todd, and I said to you guys a lot here, my books literally, sincerely, one has led to the other, and that's why I wasn't surprised. I was duly startled, but I wasn't surprised really that there was a Napoleon III connection. Todd, tell us how Margaretta Todd was allegedly tied to Napoleon III.
Well, as the story goes, she may have had an affair. We think she did, but she was dancing scandalously, very scandalously for the time, with Napoleon III at the State Ball in Paris, France, on the eve of the Franco-Prussian War. Right before then, she mysteriously leaves him after that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah, she was pretty much, the way it sounds, she was basically obsessed with the guy.
Well, and then doesn't she? Isn't her daughter Rosalie born suspiciously close to that?
Oh yes, it was very suspiciously close to that. In fact, she was still in Europe, and she, if I'm allowed to say, am I allowed to say?
Yeah.
Okay, Margaretta leaves Rosalie at an orphanage in Europe before she comes back to New York. You know, yes. Which is very suspicious within itself, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think we're really onto something. Thinking perhaps,
well, Rosalie, Rosalie, who became Rosalie Tousey, she may have been the illegitimate daughter of Napoleon III, who, by the way, folks, was a nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte. You know, Napoleon I.
Right.
And
I just want to say, tell the chat room, if you like Agatha Christie murder mysteries, the Margaretta Todd mystery is right up your alley, because it's basically a real life Agatha Christie murder mystery.
Yeah, it's really and the issue with Ingersoll Lockwood was she became, on the one hand, you want to say she became paranoid, but when you look at the details of her death, you know, you got to say, was she paranoid, or were they really out to get her? I think they were out to get her. Yeah,
just read the book. There's a lot of evidence that people were out to get her in the form of a letter, perhaps.
Well, who happened to be on the train at the same time?
Lewis L. Todd.
What's that?
Lewis L. Todd.
Yes, her ex or soon to be ex-husband or something.
They weren't even married. She just took the dude's last name.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, yeah.
he happened to be traveling along that railroad at the same time she gets killed, and so that one's an eyebrow raiser,
Right, and not to mention we have George Gordon Hastings, lawyer
yes.
number 2.
Yes, because Ingersoll Lockwood was a lawyer. Remember, folks, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not familiar with this, Lockwood was her lawyer, as
Right.
well as we don't know the extent of their personal relationship. However, she was. They had a bit of a falling out. She was mad about. She thought he was teaming up with, I think, a maid of hers, to kind of use for him to play games with her will to get her estate.
Right. Long story short, he was made the trustee of the will. She didn't like it. She wanted to go back on it, and so she kind of lost it. But I brought up George Gordon Hastings because it's really interesting that Ingersoll Lockwood wrote Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Adventure, in which little Baron finds a time portal in Russia in the Ural Mountains. And here you have lawyer number 2 writing his own time travel novel called The First American King.
Yeah.
Right? So we have the Last President by Ingersoll Lockwood, and then we have The First American King by George Gordon Hastings.
Exactly.
Right?
And time travel 3 ways around here. Hastings' story, how did Lockwood, his books, precognitive books, and then the whole mystery around Charles Howard Johnson, right?
Right. Right.
And, what was going on? What were people doing where looking across or looking into time and space? Why this obsession? H.G. Wells wrote his story, and was it, my gosh, was the time machine in the 1890s, or was it after?
1890s, I believe.
Or it's either, but again, this fascination with time travel popping up at that particular time in history. And then there's, as you guys know, years ago I said it, my mentor, when I was kind of figuring out some stuff for myself, that really started with a very close look at ufology back in my personal very close look at ufology. It's not that I'm the first guy that's ever come up with this. I'm just telling you about my personal research back in the late 80s. And a few years after that, I asked him, hey, could time travel be connected with all this? And he said I was on the right track. And he told me, this was back in the early mid 90s. He told me that they had figured out, or had been dabbling with or doing time travel stuff since the turn of the century. Now, being in the 1990s, him telling me that, he meant the 1890s. And so here, years later, this guy Todd Wood introduces me to this the details of the Ingersoll Lockwood mystery, and wouldn't you know it, here again we have a fascination with time and time travel in the 1890s. And what's going on here? What did these guys know? What Charles Howard Johnson knew is the real question. And of course, in the book, the Lockwood book, we go into Johnson and how it looks like his story, his personal story, may have influenced both Jack Finney and Richard Matheson, 2 top-notch classic science fiction fantasy authors of the mid 20th century, who are each the author of what many consider 2 of the 3 greatest time travel novels ever written. So
yeah, Charles Howard Johnson is definitely a enigma wrapped in a riddle.
Indeed. He you recall that we were never able to find a gravesite for him. If anyone knows where Charles Howard Johnson, the illustrator who oh boy, I'd have to pull up the book to see what year he died. Gee, it wasn't 1903, was it? Those of you guys familiar with my work will get that. You know, his personal story actually has a lot of similarities to what Richard Matheson wrote in his novel, which became Somewhere in Time. You know, falls in love with an actress, you know, dies in his hotel room home, you know, so to essentially, and is just, you know, a big fat mystery. And even in the middle of that is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow and his family turning up missing from their family crypt. And you got to ask yourself, is Longfellow himself even inside the famous tomb? You know, and that connects to Nicolas Poussin and, you know, the paintings of France that are all connected to the Rennes-le-Château, which there we have France. There we have possibly a thread connecting to Napoleon Bonaparte, which brings us around again to Napoleon III and Margaretta Todd.
That's right. That's right.
So,
and not even to mention, guys, Margaretta and who else she may be related to, if she is indeed a von Hoffman.
Right. Oh, Dion Williams is reminding us that Charles Howard Johnson died on July 3rd, 1896. That's right.
That's right. Of brain fever.
I knew there was a 3 in there.
Yeah.
That's why I was quipping about 1903. Yeah. 1896.
Right. I mean, she was a wealthy woman.
Time Machine published in 1895 says megalithic. Yeah. See, recall too, if I'm not mistaken, if someone's got theirs handy, mine's on the shelf way behind me. In the novel originally titled Bid Time Return by Richard Matheson, now titled Somewhere in Time, if I'm not mistaken, when he goes back in time, it's 1896.
Yep.
So there's Matheson choosing that year. It's just and Finney choosing New York,
right?
In
well,
Time and Again. No.
Well, 1896 is when 1900, The Last President was written, and the election, the first time William Jennings Bryan ran against McKinley was in 1896.
Yeah. Solite asks, what was the name of the guy? I usually don't do this, but it's in a blue block. What was the name of the guy again? Walter mentioned was on the right track for dealing with time travel. Well, there's Hastings, who Todd reminded us about. Hastings. There was Ingersoll Lockwood himself, but Hastings, George Gordon Hastings, if that's the name you're
right.
looking for. And I get what's going on here. I'm new to this newfangled streaming stuff. What Malia did was she told me she was going to do that, highlight stuff, right? Malia, are you doing that, or is that just the most recent comment that I'm saying? Folks, excuse me. For those of you who are new here, the more professional podcast, streamcast kind of presentation. And David Paff, you're right. Somewhere in Time is one of the best modern films out there. But anyway, I'm still getting used to the new bells and whistles here, which I love. I like this.
Right.
I like that I'm able to have a guest. I mean,
right.
I'm not kidding. Todd and I've never seen Todd. It's always just his voice. I know his voice. And, you know, this has been 3 years or so. And so this is really cool to be able to do
another interesting synchronicity with William Jennings Bryan, who is the president of 1900, The Last President, is he actually came up with the whole idea that a country has a soul, right? Or a spirit, right? The reason why we went to World War I, according to him, is we got to defend the spirit, or the soul of America, right? And if you go back a few months ago to that crazy speech Joe Biden gave with the red in the background, and he looked like that was the soul of the nation speech. And who originated that? Well, that was William Jennings Bryan. So there's another connection right there to our present day,
to the present situation, to Lockwood's book, The Last President. So, folks, when you go to read Ingersoll Lockwood's works, and you read The Last President, seriously, you'll see that it has to do with what's gone on since 2020.
Right. And not to mention the shadow campaign to save the 2020 election, in which the Times article states that they had agents and people in place to start upheaval and rioting in case
Yeah, that
Mr.
is
Trump won. So
that,
I mean, I take that as a win right there, because they were already planning to do it. Not to mention the ballots, the 1900 on the date of the presidential ballots coming from New York, right?
and these things that Todd is laying out here, these, when you go read The Last President, I think you'll be astonished at the at the resonance between the current events and what's in that book. And it just makes you wonder in his other books, particularly in the Barron Trump books, with the things that are found in the Urals, and the portal, and the time thing. It's I just can't get away from this time thing, because it's so it's mind-boggling.
And the manuscript, the manuscript,
the what?
The World Within Worlds, which starts Barron on his journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Book. And the underground journey thing, the whole hollow earth thing. Now, to throw a bone to you Tartaria folks, it is interesting how these things, these mysterious portals into the hollow earth and this time travel is over there, in the Urals and in what we know as Russia and stuff. And the very fact of, when we say the lost future, because Todd and I have talked about this, and the concept of the lost future that we're talking about in the books is it's just hypothetical, but the hypothesis is this: that thinkers, movers, shakers, the people that really steer a civilization, were headed in a much more positive, a much more just better energy, certainly a much more elegant 20th century than the one we got.
Yes.
And within our hypothesis of this lost future, and again, there's others who are saying the same thing in other ways, using other examples, but in our hypothesis, it's the idea that the 20th century that was envisioned, the 20th century that was shaping up, that we were on track to have, was taken from us by globalists, by it gets even more sinister than that, because we're touching on something that was done to the psyche of the masses, okay? And that they started this very possibly, I want to credit the author, Nigel. His first name is Nigel. He's written a very interesting book about the Jack the Ripper murders and the mind control implications and possibilities of that. And that fits in with our lost future hypothesis, in that it may have been the first shock therapy on the psyche of a public. Okay. Go ahead, Todd.
Speaking of mind control, it was William Jennings Bryan's grandson.
Yes.
Was part of psychological warfare for the DOD.
Yeah.
In fact, he was involved with the Boston Strangler case, which you mentioned in a pulp.
Yeah, in my pulp, the Devil's Mill. The Boston Strangler, Albert DeSalvo, makes an interesting appearance.
Right. And he claimed to have hypnotized Sirhan into killing RFK. And he was a consultant on the Manchurian Candidate. That is William Joseph Bryan, folks.
Yeah. William Jennings Bryan's grandson or great nephew? Grandson, yeah. So in the hypothesis, and when you go back and look at the history of MK Ultra and the development of that, and you will see that this idea that someone in the late 19th century started getting the idea of how can we control the masses of the world? Let's go through their psyche. Let's do it psychologically. Let's shock them into submission. And certainly when you look at the 20th century, look what World War I did to the so-called lost generations. Look, of course, at the shocking things that happened during World War II, culminating in the big shock of the atomic bomb, and then MK Ultra itself, the JFK assassination. I argue that the space shuttle disaster in 1986 was one of these events, 9/11 certainly, and on and so forth, that this could have been one of the main tools they used to keep the masses at bay while they commandeered, while they usurped and really hijacked the 20th century. So yes, you can point to some great things. Great, look, humankind is such a creature that even in the worst of times, great things are going to happen. Folks, I would rather go to a dentist anytime during my lifetime than 100 years ago or more. Okay, thank you very much. I mean, just that alone. I think we would agree that some great things have been done with medical technology. I think we can agree that some horrific things have been and are being done with medical science. There's always going to be that with technology. It's a double-edged sword, but basically the concept of the lost future is that another better 20th century was stolen from us by people that really their thing is still around and they're gripping it tightly and don't want to let it go, and they want to own the 21st century as well. And we're already 22 years into this 21st century, and these nefarious players are alive and well. But Todd and I still have a lot more to tell about this Lost Future saga, because we're working on what's going to be the third book about this mysterious group called the Titans and their connections to Ingersoll Lockwood and all of this. But there's more to it than just that group. This third book that Todd and I are going to do is really going to reveal even more why Todd really captured my attention with what he was researching, because I was seeing where there's potential answers to questions I was left with after Latitude 33, questions after, the 3 Empire of the Wheel books. Right. Yes, indeed. What Todd dug up and introduced me to with this Ingersoll Lockwood mystery stuff is very likely connected to the research I had been doing. So you see what I mean when things are connected. So, well, hey, we're down to the last 15 minutes of this hour, and what I wanted to do was give the live chat a chance to ask you, Todd, whatever questions they want to ask you about the Ingersoll Lockwood book, the Margaretta Todd research, and just anything about your other research. So go ahead.
What's that? Yes,
go ahead.
Sounds good.
Okay. All righty. So let us go to the live chat. Folks in the live chat, you're asking primarily Todd questions, and please make it clear that put at Todd, the at symbol Todd, or put it in all caps so that we know it's a question for Todd. B. Baker says, you mean Pfizer isn't working in our best interest? They screwed me up.
They screwed me up too.
Hearing aids and screwed up eyes and rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, my gosh. Thanks, guys. I don't have COVID. Oh boy.
Radioactive spider bites.
Yeah, I wish, at
Yeah.
least I'd have superpowers, right?
Right.
Any questions at all? Or are you guys just so flabbergasted that you're speechless? This doesn't look good for people coming here for the first time. Even his own live chat doesn't care.
They're probably flabbergasted about all the stuff that's been happening.
Well, I'll tell you what, while we're waiting for that, let me go to, I forgot to send, Malia, can I email the graphic to you, or is there a different way? Thank you, Soulite. Soulite likes the having the guest on, and Pierce Tesler Ashpool just got here. Okay, I'm going to send an email to Malia with the graphic for. We'll just go into our little. Oh, I need another light on to see the. Good Lord, Walter. To see the. Thing there. And then Malia will put this up on the screen, hopefully. And you guys will be able to see the cover of a fun new book that Todd and I have worked on. And we're going to be releasing, let's see, let's put that there. Let's put that there. And there we go. And I'm sending this to, just emailed that to Malia. And I'm back. Let me turn this light on. There we go. Okay. Oh, we have a question here. Todd B. Baker asks, what happens after the last president? Or should I get the book?
Well, you should always get the book, but let's think about it. You got to have the last president before you have the first American king, don't you? As in Ingersoll Lockwood's 1900, the last president, and George Gordon Hastings, the first American king. Maybe there's something to it.
Yeah. So basically, we would recommend you dig out Hastings' book and read that. And maybe you'll get an answer to the question. Right. As Todd will tell you, the answers are all up for grabs. We don't know the answer for sure,
right?
Either.
Everything isn't. Let's say Ingersoll Lockwood did say see the future. Yeah. Okay, that doesn't mean the future can't change, right? Because if you're aware that someone saw the future, then you can start taking actions to change that future. Nothing is set in stone.
That's right.
Or you could also create a psychological operation to make it look like someone has predicted the future.
Kind of like what I think Werner von Braun meant with his popular alleged deathbed confession about, the threat from space. Right. Not that there isn't going to be threats from space, because I think it's only logical and rational.
Right.
To accept that there's going to be, but what von Braun was very likely saying was they were going to do some type of psyop using that as a theme. In other words, they were going to find a way to screw us, the masses, using threat from space as the scare tactic, right? It doesn't mean there's not going to be a threat from space. It means what they're going to do and what they're going to put in place is that's going to be the lie. In other words, telling us they have to do some rotten thing. So it's this, that's a good example of what you're talking about. Now, we have a question from Megalithic Yard. How many books in the series do you two plan?
I don't know. We'll just kind of go to where it takes us. Really, that's any good investigation. You never know where the end is actually going to be.
Exactly. Agreed. Yeah. We just pull the threads, and you know, when you decide, okay, we got to write this as a book and that as a book, we were talking about the whole Ingersoll Lockwood and then Margaretta Todd thing. It wasn't like we finished the Lockwood book and then Todd said, hey, now there's the Margaretta Todd thing you ought to look at. No, we decided, okay, we got to introduce them to the Ingersoll Lockwood chunk because they have to understand that what they're hearing in popular media with all its political noise going on around it, the actual facts and fascinating facts they are, might get obfuscated by, you know, what everybody was thinking about what it was about. So we introduced the reader with this book so that they get, you know, an initial context. And this mystery, Margaretta Todd, it deserved it. It required its own book because of all the weirdness about her. So then, of course, we realized as we were doing these that, okay, at some point we're going to have to deal with the mysterious group. And that in itself, again, like Margaretta Todd, that is such a big bite to take that that becomes its own book. And I guarantee you that whatever turns up when we finally jump into the third book and are working on that, there's going to be things that turn up that Todd and I realize, oh my gosh, okay, that's got to be another book. So basically, as we pull the threads, more books happen.
Can I go back to your Warner von Braun statement?
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So before the alien invasion, there's asteroids. And another one of these Trump synchronicities was a show called Trackdown from, I believe it was either 1952 or 1958. Yeah.
Trackdown, I forgot about that.
In which the villain of this particular episode, titled The End of the World, was named Trump. And Trump came into this small town trying to swindle these people out of their money because he wanted to build a wall around the town to protect it from asteroids, meteor showers, comets. Now, last time I checked, a wall would keep you in. It wouldn't protect you from anything falling from the sky.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not a roof, it's a wall.
It's a wall. So just consider, maybe they're planting these seeds, right? Maybe some, you know, maybe there is a big asteroid thing that happens before.
Well, tell them. Remember, in the TV show you're talking about, he was selling them these magic umbrellas, right? No,
there's no magic umbrellas. Wait, the whole idea is he would give them money and he was going to build the wall.
He was going to build a wall, but what was the umbrella thing? Or am I mixing up another?
I think you're mixing up something else.
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry. Okay. And, the wall thing.
Not to mention Delshau, right? So there's Charles Delshau's painting. And so there's all these weird synchronicities. There's, in fact, probably more synchronicities with Trump than anybody else, any other president. In fact, I'm sure if we kept looking, we'd keep finding them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It goes on. Todd Citizen Quasar says hello to you.
Hey, Citizen Quasar.
So let's see if we got any more questions here. Gustavo Garcia Echeverria asks, what happened to Margaretta's daughter? Oh, you tell them, Todd. You tell them.
Well, Rosalie Tausay mysteriously passed away on her honeymoon because she got married to George Gordon Hastings, and she passed away in the southern France under very mysterious circumstances.
Only about a year after her mother.
Yeah, about a year after her mother. Yep.
While if I'm not mistaken, was not the estate issue still being worked?
Right. It was still
it wasn't settled.
I think it was still being figured out, but at that point, Ingersoll may have been out of it.
Yeah, Ingersoll was out of it, but the estate wasn't settled.
It was all Hastings at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a mysterious third lawyer, but we don't really know much about that guy. So, but yeah, I mean, the whole Margaretta Todd mystery, if you love true crime and you like Agatha Christie, I mean, that's the book for you because it is a mystery and a half. It will keep you up at nights.
Oh, yeah. B. Baker asked, have the 17 people latched onto the work. You know what they mean by 17, the letter of the alphabet.
You mean Q?
Well, yeah, there you said it.
Oh, I mean, I have no idea. Only thing I know about Q is the most codependent letter of the alphabet. Can't do anything without you.
Oh, I like that. I like that. B. Baker, here's the thing. That particular what's the word? Perspective, let's say. I think they were among the people that were noticing the Lockwood book in the first place, because I recall Lockwood being a discussion in their ranks before Todd and I started talking about him. So yes, they are, but from what I understand, they tend to, at least at that time, it seemed like they were the people that were making assumptions about the material without having read it. In some cases, at least the people talking about it initially.
And don't forget about Ingersoll Lockwood Incorporated in Washington, D.C. There might be a connection to that Q letter right there. You never know.
Yeah. So the point is, the bottom line is, when you go at these books, I think you'll be really surprised that there's a lot more than just what Lockwood precogged about our times to fascinate you. So certainly, if you're tuned into what's going on these days, you're going to find it really interesting. In particular, read The Last President. But even if you kind of want to escape all that conversation, all that noise, there's a lot more to these books and this mystery than just politics of the last few years of our times. There's just a lot more to it, and there's going to be more to come. So
don't forget also, another little synchronicity to you is Frank Tausset, the godfather of pulps, and dime store books in New York, who Rosalie married.
Rosalie married one of the earliest pulp publishers in America, in the world, and absolutely. There's the tradition connecting to guys like me in my little Lost Continent library, and now she was married to Tousey, obviously, before she married Hastings,
right?
But I'm still fascinated with pulling, and we're both still pulling those Napoleonic threads, as you guys know. I'm working on coming out with the second volume of the Napoleon Secret Missions book, and I'll tell you, I'm glad, increasingly, I'm glad that was delayed until after Todd and I had jumped into the Margaretta Todd book, because there are things that we both learned, and certainly that I learned from Todd's research, that really, when I think about it, I needed to know for the second volume of Napoleon, Esoteric Napoleon. So I'm a great believer in things work out the way they should, and I firmly believe that, and I'm using that word belief, and I even think it too, rationally, that there's no way I could have written Napoleon Volume 2 without having written this book first, the Margaretta Todd book with Todd. So there we go. Now, Todd, before I let you go, Malia, is it possible to show the graphic that I sent you? Did I do that right by emailing it to you? Todd and I have been working on a book that it's perfect to announce that it's coming soon, very soon, here the night before Halloween. And this is going to have the Lost Continent Library label. Our nonfiction we worked on together, that's Corvos, of course. As you guys know, Corvos is my nonfiction imprint, but Lost Continent Library is my fun stuff. And Todd presented me with this idea of doing what is known as a classic reprint. In this case, by just a great author of his time, S. Baring Gold, or Sabine Baring Gold.
Baring Gold.
Yeah. And I'm waiting for Malia to tell me if it's possible to. I think she's working on it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
possible.
all this stuff that's been going on lately makes me feel like I'm back in the 1980s. How do you feel?
Oh yeah. It's Todd's been doing amazing research and taking a look at serial killers, and the history of modern serial killers and stuff. And you tell him, Todd, the basics of the idea that there's going to be more.
Oh yeah, well, there's going to be more. We made our kids wear masks. And because their brains are developing and they need to see your facial expression to be able for their brains to develop correctly. According to the Oxford study that came out last year, there a big number of our kids are probably going to experience empathy disorders. So you're going to see a lot more sociopathy, psychopathy, things like that. And what I was just referring to is the stuff that was going on in Utah with that David Hamlin guy and the ritualistic child abuse, and then then this week with the that woman coming forward telling the news that her father was a serial killer and the cadaver dogs, and then everything going on with Russia and Ukraine. I was just saying it feels like the 1980s.
Yeah, and certainly with that war, there's a bunch of people who apparently wish it were the 1980s.
Those are the people who like own every synthwave album and have mullets.
It's funny. It reminds me of a C.W. Chanter and his time loop. Demonstrations and research where everything comes around again if you listen to the right things. And it's funny what good and bad nostalgia will do to the human psyche and the psyche of the masses. Which is the thing that we're pretty sure they were beginning to wield and apply to the public back in the 1890s, and did it all through the 20th century
with the Jack the Ripper stuff. Even now, even through the 1970s, that it was still going on. Just David McAllen's work on Program to Kill. I think he has sufficiently proved it. But as far as like cults go, I think there's really something to it,
Oh yeah. I see the book graphic is behind us, but Malia, is there a way to show the whole book cover to them? I'm kind of throwing this at her at the short notice last minute here.
I'm gonna have to jump in so you can hear me. Sorry.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
No problem. No. Yes, clearly.
Well, because we're not uploading it onto internet yet, I can put it in the background. I could bring all of you guys out and show it, and then put you guys.
Let's do that. Yeah, let's do that.
Does that work? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I want everybody to see. And wait a minute.
Okay.
Are they able to?
Can you see it?
What about?
Was that the right one?
All they saw was they didn't see the whole, like the title.
The werewolf.
Yeah.
The page. Yeah. See, there's something weird going on right now.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll post it at the in the.
Let me try to upload it to the site. Can I upload it to the site and then we can share it? Yeah,
okay.
It'll take me a few minutes, but
or I can post it at the community tab of the page. However, yeah, it's basically what we're doing is
I'll post it on the site.
Okay.
That'll work.
Basically, what Todd and I have done is put together an edition of Baring Gold's The Book of Werewolves. and it entered the public domain not long ago, and we decided, hey, let's put this out there. There's a fun Lost Continent Library book, and it will include some really cool illustrations done by an artist friend of Todd's.
Yeah, Christina Claflin. She's the one to watch out for. She's great.
Yeah, and her, what I really like about her illustrations for this book that we've put together is that they are very reminiscent of one of the old pulp era styles that is also included in the book. There's a couple of examples of classic old pulp art in there with werewolves, and there's a couple of them in there that her style is very reminiscent of that, and also of kind of like folk art, I guess, in general, which, if you recall, there's the great woodcuts of werewolves and monsters and witches and stuff through history. And it's reminiscent of that. And I thought, well, these illustrations are going to be, Todd's right, they're just right for this. So it's going to be fun. It's a big 8.5 by 11 inch coffee table kind of book, and we're looking forward to getting it out to you guys. But I'm glad at least to be able to get the cover art out there and to announce it on this night before Halloween.
Right.
And we were hoping to actually have the book done and out, but as you guys know, I have some TV business going on that has been demanding my undivided attention, mostly through the last several weeks. And it just, it's potentially a big project. So, I had to prioritize things. So I figured, well, at least I'll get the cover art done and announce the werewolf book. And also I just did a thorough font search and got a bunch of new really cool fonts. So the werewolf book isn't just going to be boring old Times New Roman on plain white pages. It's going to be a nice font. It's going to be a cool book. And
right. And it does connect to some of the other research.
Yes.
Because remember, just because you don't become a beast on the outside doesn't mean you're not a beast on the inside.
That's right. That's right. And it'll even have a connection to a book that I'm not going to reveal the topic here, but it's going to be a secret missions book not too far down the road. So we'll just leave it at that. And Todd knows what I'm talking about, but he ain't talking. So, okay. Well, Todd, we've kept you for an hour. I know it's late back there for you.
Yep.
I thank you for doing this. You're my first official guest on the Walter Bosley channel.
I am so honored to be the first guest. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really do appreciate it. This has been so much fun.
Well, hey, it's been fun for me too. I've really liked this. It kind of gave my vocal cords a rest because it's not my fat head doing all the talking.
Right, and it's my fat head now too, huh?
That's right. We got your fat head in there, and next week we'll have Laura London's fat head in there.
Yeah.
Everybody's head looks, gigantic. That's why I kind of lean in. But well, actually, I lean back so people can see what shirts I'm wearing. But so okay, well, Todd, again, thank you, and we will have our usual weekly talk coming up here in a couple of days.
Right.
And thanks again for coming on.
Sounds good.
All righty. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Let's see. Yeah, I know.